You're tuned into the VSX Digital Sports Network.
You're listening to The Mind Coordinator with Dr. David Schoonover on KSHP, AM 1400, 107.1 FM, and VSX Digital Sports Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to The Mind Coordinator. I'm your head coach, Dr. David Schoonover. We are very excited to have you tuned in today for all those listening locally and around the globe. We have an extremely exciting show for you today. You want to tell your buddies, you want to tell your family, you want to tell everybody to tune in to listen to this. Today we're going to embark on a journey through interconnected realms of sports and psychology, some therapeutic interventions like my business, the Lighthouse Sessions, and how they have a profound impact on the coach and players in this dynamic world of sports, right? We're going to delve into sports psychology. We're going to talk about how mental factors play a pivotal role in shaping athletes' performances, resilience, overall well-being on the field. Listen, today in the athletic landscape, the stakes are high, right? The level of competition is intense at all levels. It can be from grassroots to professional leagues. And the margin of victory and defeat can be slim. And we emphasize the need for mental resilience and focus under pressure. Players are under constant scrutiny from fans, media, clubs. The high expectations for constant and consistent peak performance, and how they can manage some performance anxiety and maintaining confidence. It's really crucial for sustained success. So we're going to get started here soon with Miss Amie Stewart. Let me go ahead and just bring that in here in just a minute. We're going to take a quick commercial, and when we come back, we'll have Amie, and we will get started. You guys hang tight. It's going to be very exciting.
You're listening to The Mind Coordinator with Dr. David Schoonover on KSHP, AM 1400, 107.1 FM, and VSX Digital Sports Network.
Unscathed, unstoppable, under pressure. Nobody get it done better. You can spot them from the crowd anywhere. Call them leopard, undenied, undefined, unrestrained. How we roll out.
I'm Dr. David Schoonover, your dedicated formation therapist. Feeling weighed down by life's challenges? Let's navigate them together. Whether it's sports psychology, relationships, or career struggles, I'm here to guide you towards clarity and healing. Take the first step towards a brighter tomorrow. Visit thelighthouseSessions.com or call 702-518-4393. Schedule your consultation. I'm Dr. Schoonover. Together, let's illuminate your path to your inner light.
Clear Sky Resorts invites you to experience the future of luxury glamping at their newest resort, opening August 1st, 2024 near Bryce Canyon. Guests at the first and only glass-domed stargazing resort in the U.S. will be immersed in the stunning scenery of the resort's private 80-acre canyon, both indoors and out, and nights in your Sky Dome will be like sleeping in an aquarium of stars. Located in Cannonville, Utah, on scenic Byway 12, voted one of the most scenic roads in America, the resort will feature lots of fun on-resort activities, as well as one of the world's largest glass-domed restaurants. To book your reservation, please call 1-888-704-4445 or visit clearskyresorts.com.
You're tuned into the VSX Digital Sports Network.
You're listening to The Mind Coordinator with Dr. David Schoonover on KSHP, AM 1400, 107.1 FM, and VSX Digital Sports Network.
All right, and we are back with the Mind Coordinator, Dr. David Schoonover. I always like to start off, before I just introduce our guests, I want to go over just a little bit of a bio. All right, here we go. Miss Amie, she graduated from Bellflower High School with a 3.5 GPA in 91. Graduated from UNLV with a bachelor's in kinesiology in 1996. Graduated from National University with a master's in education in 2006. She holds multiple subject teaching credentials. It's just amazing. She was inducted into the the BHS Hall of Fame in 2014. She played 4 years varsity volleyball and softball. This is the bio is crazy. She was the BHS Athlete of the Year. She has received the recognition award from the mayor in '91. She was Softball Player of the Year. This bio is crazy. You guys are going to love it. She was inducted into the UNLV Athletic Hall of Fame. The team induction into the UNLV Athletic Hall of Fame. She led UNLV to third place in the Women's College World Series. This bio it goes on and on and on. She participated in the 1997 National Team Festival in Michigan. Top 60 players in the United States. Played professional softball for the Durham Dragons. We're on and on and on. What can I say? Coaching. Softball head coach. PGF head coach, California. Head coach for the California Rebels. ASA head coach. Division I softball pitching coach for UC Riverside. Head coach. Just amazing. She was elected to the Bellflower United School District Board in November 6, 2022 election, and currently serves as vice president and served as clerk for a couple of years there. Teachers Association of Paramount, elected as vice president of governance in 2022 and served as secretary from 2021. She has a daughter that plays softball at San Diego State. She was a World Cup of softball color commentator, announcer. Just absolutely amazing. On top of all of that, she's also an author. She's had printed publications, trials and triumphs about playing college football and what it's like to beat the best in the world. So, welcome listeners to today's segment featuring the remarkable individual whose journey spans across various facets of sports and education. Join me in welcoming Amie Stewart.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Amie, very excited to have you here. I want to get started. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I just said thank you.
Oh, no, certainly. Absolutely. I want to get started here right off the bat to just kind of start from the beginning of what inspired you to start playing softball and how did this journey evolve?
I just was very athletic as a kid. I grew up with a family that we were always outside. We were always playing different sports. And I just really loved softball. So I actually, in, I guess, today's norms, I started pretty late. I started at 12. A lot of kids start, as soon as they're born, it seems. But
Sure.
I started at 12 and started playing, and I just fell in love with it. And I played a lot of different sports in high school. I think it's really important to do different things. So I did play volleyball and basketball, but softball was what I was best at, and I just went with it.
That's awesome. Yeah, I was born in Ohio, and there's a hospital in Ohio. If you are born a male child, they give you a little basket when you leave. They give you a couple bottles of water and some diapers and a football. This is like 2 days old.
Right.
So I get that. I know what you're saying. Can you share a memorable moment from your time as an All-American player?
I think going to the World Series was probably the most memorable moment. My first 3 years, we were ranked in the top 10. We were supposed to go to the World Series, and we didn't. We didn't cross over that hump and make it. And so there was a lot of pressure and a lot of stress. We even had reporters asking us, you've been in this position for 3 years and didn't make it. So it was always on our mind. So to cross over that bridge and win regionals my senior year and go to the World Series was definitely the most memorable thing. My teammates, just being at the World Series, there's just the fans, there's so many, young kids watching, and I just think that was the most memorable time that I've had as a player.
Gosh, I can imagine. That's just that's about as good as it gets, right?
Yes, I was a pitcher.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's so awesome. Amie, you've been coaching most of your life, it seems. Even when you're playing, you're still coaching, right? So, what can you tell us from these different levels of coaching? What kind of key lessons you've learned at these different levels?
I think every level is different, and I think it's just really important, no matter what level you're at, to make connections with your players and to really get to know them. In the younger ages, it's about building confidence. It's about having fun. You start to get, I think, in the high school, more of your skills and your focus. There's a lot of stress around recruiting and kids that want to play in college. When you get to the college coaching, I think just, helping them to remember, that there's a lot of time management and social things that they need to think about. And so I think every level is different, but I think just trying to build around, making connections with your kids so that you can understand what they're going through and what you can do to help them reach whatever next level they want to go to.
Yeah, it's really important to be able to connect. With my business at the Lighthouse Sessions, one of the things that I do before we have our first session is there's some testing and some questions I do, and I can tell with 90 to 95% accuracy how a person thinks, why they do what they do, how they act and react like they do. And I think that is so important because when you finally understand how to communicate with a person and how to lead a person, it makes a huge difference. And I found that it makes for lifelong connections like that.
Right, absolutely. I mean, just from, the on-field experiences, different players react differently. You can get on some players. You need to coddle some players. You need to not say anything to some players. So I think just learning how to coach them and then just understanding what their life is outside of the field, outside of, softball and the sports that I coach, understanding, their family backgrounds and things that they're going on. I think if you don't make those connections, if it's more transactional than transformative, I just think that it's a lot more difficult to understand your athletes and get the best out of them.
Yeah, it certainly is. I've had a chance to, and still to this day, get a chance to work with professional athletes, whether it's football or basketball or soccer. And a lot of these guys, most of these people, whether it's high school or college, are gifted athletes. But you're right, it's the climate, it's the culture they come from. And if you don't understand that, you'll never connect with them,
Absolutely. I've had some amazing athletes, go to college that I've coached and play, and they didn't finish. And there was just a lot of different variables that happened. And, the mental part of it is so important. And, I've had players that maybe weren't the top elite athletes go to college and have great careers and have great lives. So it's really different for each individual person, and you just cannot coach the team and your players the same. Every one of them is different.
Right. They all have the wherewithal, they have the athletic ability, but creating that synergy, that's key for coaches, right? You've got to understand who they are, how to motivate them, and how to keep yourself motivated, right?
Absolutely. And I think for me, it was really important. I sat down with my athletes at least, 2 to 3 times a year, and we went over the goals and, the positives, the negatives, and really tried to focus on the improvement part of the game. And I think that just helps your individual team. If everyone knows their roles, I think that just makes it just an easier, cohesive process.
Absolutely, yeah. We were talking about recruiting, and you find the players, you get them on the team, but then this is where it actually begins, how you start working with these athletes. So how do you approach player development and team dynamics in your coaching philosophy?
I'm really big on individual skills and doing a lot of just drills and things where we can focus on just certain, weaknesses that they need to improve on. I'm really big on team functions. I'm also a teacher, so, we do a lot of the strategies of becoming a team and working together. So I just really try to focus on their individual needs and then, the team needs by just, again, just having discussions, having conversations, but really trying to train them to become better in the things that they struggle with. And sometimes that's hard because people don't want to practice the things that they don't do well. So you have to really just mentally get them to understand it's practice, make your mistakes now, and just go for it. And then it'll be better when you get to the game situations.
Sure. So, and the thing that it kind of irritates me as a therapist, I've been doing this for 20 years. There are so many people that need help. whether it's a relationship that you have just by yourself or spouse or family member, but especially in sports. And it literally drives me nuts. These guys need help. The pressure they're under, the anxiety, the stress, the need to constantly perform at a high level, it really wears them down. And there is such a stigma about mental health and getting help, and it really falls back on the coach or the assistant coaches, right? They've got, like you said, you have these conversations with these young men or women, and you get to know them. But when you get to know them on that level, and you can tell that there's something going on, there's something wrong, that's a huge challenge that I would see that faces a lot of coaches. So you've probably run into that. How do you overcome those challenges?
One thing I always reminded my athletes, it was really important to me, is when you're on the field, you're practicing, you're playing, it's a great space to not think about your daily struggles or not think about that. I had my sophomore year in college, my mom, she developed breast cancer, and I actually went home, and, my mom was like, you're not helping here. Like, go back to school, go back to practice. And I just was reminded that when I was on the field, I didn't think about all those problems. Now, when you're off the field or you're home at night, those come back. Sure. But I just always reminded the kids when you're in practice, when you're playing, that, you're not thinking about those things. And that's such a great space to be in, and to just remember that when you don't want to go to practice or when you don't want to go to games, that it's actually going to be very helpful in you not thinking about some of the problems that you have.
Yep, I totally agree. So you've got this professional role, you've got coaching responsibilities, your plate is full. So this next question is just pretty easy. How do you balance all these things? You got coaching responsibilities, professional roles. How do you do that?
It's hard sometimes. It's definitely hard. I'm very organized, so I just keep a very strict schedule. I have a calendar up. I just check off boxes. I just remind myself to sleep well, to try to eat well, and do the best that I can. And I just take it day by day. I try not to look back or ahead and just stay in the present and think day by day what I need to do.
Yeah, that's it. You got to just take it day by day, and balancing all those things is a tough thing to do, right?
And I think enjoying what you do. I really love the things I do. I love being a teacher. I'm really enjoying being on the school board and helping our community and serving our community. So I think loving what you do is also very important and makes it a lot easier.
Oh, absolutely. I was having a discussion with one of my clients earlier this morning about the exact same thing. You're looking at probably 80 or 90% of the people who work for a living don't like what they do. But,
right.
It's what they do for money, right? And they're kind of stuck.
Right.
But like you, I am the same way. I love what I do. I love helping people. I love seeing them get it together. And it's usually something pretty small, right? It's just kind of the way that goes.
Right. And I think letting other people motivate you as well. Like, there's days where, it's tough and someone will call me and thank me for what they're doing. So other people being kind and supportive, it really helps my mental health as well.
Certainly, yeah. So how do you do this, Amie? How do you integrate your experiences as a player to coach into your teaching methods? Because you're a teacher as well.
I am. I teach PE, so that makes it a little bit easier. And I don't know, I just try to have discussions and talk with my students and just remind them of things that, I used to think about. I always tell, I teach middle school, so I have middle school athletes, and they're very, they need more confidence. They're very nervous. And one thing that one of my coaches always told me is, if you're prepared and you're ready, there's no need to be nervous. And I tell them, win or lose, we're going to love you when you come back off the field or off the court. So I just remind them of those things.
Yeah, no matter what happens, right? We love you. Yeah, no doubt.
Right.
So on the board, you have an opportunity to have these initiatives where you're championing for the student athletes and education. What kind of initiatives can you let our listeners know that you've implemented?
Well, we definitely work on the social emotional parts of it. we are trying to implement more counseling, more one-on-ones, more social workers, more just, again, connections with students, really having wellness centers in every one of our schools where if, students or athletes need timeouts, they can go, they can talk to someone, just trying to give them safe space in between the sports and, in between their classes where they have time to just go regroup and be able to talk to somebody.
It's so important. It really is. The pressure from professional athletes, as you know, is off the charts. The pressure from college athletes, same thing. But you're teaching middle school, and people don't realize that there's such a lot of pressure coming onto these young kids. Let's say with softball, they love to play, and they're getting pressure just from their peers. But what I found is they get a lot of pressure from home, right? Mom and dad, the cousin, the brother, everybody's really kind of piling this on for junior to hit a home run or score a touchdown, those kind of things.
Right.
Yeah, it's really amazing. Listen, guys, we're going to take a quick break here, go to a quick commercial break. When we get back, a more insightful conversation with Amie Stewart. Hang tight.
You're listening to The Mind Coordinator with Dr. David Schoonover on KSHP, AM 1400, 107.1 FM, and VSX Digital Sports Network.
Embark on this thrilling journey into sports leadership with me, Dr. David Schoonover, every Sunday morning from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. on KSHP, exclusively on the VSX Digital Sports Network. Gain valuable insight into the minds of coaches, executives, and administrators as we uncover the secrets of coaching brilliance. Tune in for exclusive revelations and endless inspiration. Be sure to catch every moment each Sunday, 9 a.m. to 10 a.m., right here live on KSHP 107.1 FM, 1400 AM.
I'm Lieutenant Colonel David Flippo, and I approve this message.
Open borders, crime, inflation, failing schools. Is this the nation Democrats think we truly deserve? Republican Colonel David Flippo stands ready to represent District 4 and all Nevadans with unwavering commitment and strength. He's not just promising change, he's ready to deliver it. With a focus on economic freedom, Colonel Flippo pledges to cut bureaucratic red tape and create an environment where Nevada small business can survive and thrive, giving power to entrepreneurs and employees like you to drive our economy forward. As a combat veteran, Colonel Flippo knows the importance of national security. He's seen the border crisis firsthand and is dedicated to securing our nation and communities. On education, Colonel Flippo is committed to ensuring that parents have the right to raise their children with integrity and without interference. With Colonel Flippo, it's about taking real action that will shape a brighter Nevada future for us all. Early voting starts soon, and the primary is June 11, 2024. Blue no more to get ahead. In District 4, let's flip it red with Colonel Flippo.
Paid for by the committee to elect Lieutenant Colonel David Flippo.
You're listening to The Mind Coordinator with Dr. David Schoonover on KSHP, AM 1400, 107.1 FM, and VSX Digital Sports Network.
All right, guys, we are back with the amazing, and I mean amazing, Amie Stewart. I think that if they still had phone booths, you'd probably see her. They're changing into her Superwoman outfit and flying out of there. It's really my pleasure, Amie. I'm really enjoying this. Listen, we're talking about how to communicate, and that is a very broad statement. You could be talking to somebody, it could be going in one ear and out the other. You could be talking to somebody, they have no clue what you're talking about. So effective leaders are very skilled communicators, right? They're able to convey ideas clearly. Listen actively, and that again, we could probably do an entire show on active listening. But they're able to foster open dialogue with their teams. What is your, communication style, Amie? You're talking with a bunch of different kids, and you're trying to create this synergy within the team.
Well, talking with my athletes, I'm very open. I'm very honest. I like to have the hard conversations. I want to give them a voice. I want to teach them to use their voices and to talk and, to make sure that they're getting what they need. I know one thing we talked on before the break was parents. And I think including parents in the process and the conversations was very important to me as a coach, especially with my travel ball. I remember, at Christmas time, that was like the one time of the year where the athletes could just rest and be kids and not have to worry about playing because they play so many days in a year now. It's different than when I grew up. And just reminding them, to talk to their kids and remember that there's times where we need to put the ball down and just be kids. And, I think that was really important. And, for me as a parent, too, to make sure I wasn't too hard on my daughter, I would just take notes during her games and send them. And if she wanted to talk about it, great. And if she didn't, great. So kind of giving the athletes their own space. And, if I tried to talk to my daughter in the moment, it wasn't going to go well. So I learned that really quick. So just
Right.
giving them the time to come and talk to me like, hey, this is what I saw. Talk to me when you're ready. And she would. Eventually she would come back and we would have those conversations. So I think just respecting when they're frustrated, when they're sad, when they're happy, like looking at all of those different, emotions and trying to figure out what the best time is to have those conversations with them.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love to hear that. It kind of reminds me of my son. He played a lot of sports growing up, but those boys would play what I refer to as barn ball. If you were counting fouls, you didn't have enough fingers on your hand, right? And they would they'd go in there and they'd blow off steam, and it really helped create that synergy for the team for sure.
Yeah, and I think just always having a lot of communication, over-communicate when necessary, even players that weren't playing, players that were subs, letting them know why, letting them know what they could do to get on the field, reminding your top athletes, of things that they need to do. I think just constant communication with your athletes and your parents, especially at the younger levels, it's just really important.
Absolutely. I am reminded of a movie called The Blind Side about
Yes.
Michael Orr. There's a scene in that movie it's so profound, and I think a lot of people miss it. It's when the coach is trying to get Michael Orr to block a guy rushing in and tackling the quarterback. And the coach is
Right.
mad. He's throwing his hat up in the air, and he doesn't know how to communicate with him, right? Sandra Bullock
Right.
walks out there. She talks to him for a few minutes. And I think the next scene, Michael Orr takes the guy and dumps him in a trash can. So are we really communicating? Really, that's kind of the thing. And I love what you said because parents are so integral in this. And I have seen coddling that would make you get sick.
Right.
Because these kids are just the best until they start, high school or college, and they realize that those competition levels are a little different, right? And it's really hard for those kids.
Right, and the scene, too, it just brings me back to being a teacher is different athletes, they learn differently, they perceive things differently, and giving them different examples like that. She told him, pretend like you're protecting me, and he got it. So really tapping into your individual athletes and what they need and what will make them better because they think and they learn differently, and you just need to have a differentiative idea of working with them and giving them, we talk about the differentiated instruction. It's the same with your athletes. It's just giving them different scenarios where they can learn to be their best.
Yep, totally. Yeah, I talk to a lot of my clients and I ask them, what is it you'd like to work on? They say communication. I have to laugh. I'm like, do you realize what a broad umbrella that is? There's so many
Right.
ways to communicate, right?
Right.
Amie, you have just a phenomenal resume, and you've been playing over the years and coaching over the years. But coaching, it's like a constant evolving process. What kind of significant changes have you seen in coaching over the years?
I think that parents it's a little different. I think we didn't have as many options. Like, I'm just going to take softball for, an example. Mm-hmm. There weren't a lot of travel ball teams. So there wasn't a lot, you played on certain teams and that was that. Now there are so many teams and it's amazing. It's amazing to see the sport grow. But I think sometimes it makes it difficult because people are always looking for the greener pastures and they can jump ship and things like that. So that makes it a little more difficult. I do think there are coaches and some organizations that carry way too many players, and you don't see that player development, although they do have many more resources than, when I was playing. It's just, again, it's just that transactional transformative. I go back to that because, they carry a lot of players and it makes it difficult. The transfer portal, we look at things like that. We didn't have those types of problems. I don't believe in, how severe it is when I was playing. So I think that's a little bit different.
The pay to play is very active these days, right?
Right.
It's something. Jumping ship happens all day long. I see like some of these Division I schools, and they'll have 8 quarterbacks on their roster, and
right.
One guy's going to get it, and they're paying these guys literally millions of dollars, and that opens up a whole nother can of worms for sure. The NIL and
right, and there's negatives, but there's also a lot of positives. I love the fact that we didn't have mental health talks when I was younger. We didn't have such training that was so specific. So there's a lot. We didn't have the facilities that they play in now, and so there's a lot of positives too. It's just, it's a different balance. And then the social media. We didn't play for social media. We weren't going to be posted online an hour after our game. We didn't have to worry about that. We would read the newspaper the next day, but it was nothing like what the athletes deal with now.
Yeah. If one of your players swings and misses and you lose the game, by the time they get to the dugout, it's all over social media. And that's difficult to deal with. Yeah, that's just an added level of anxiety that we have to. That's a realization for our environment today.
Right.
Sure
I'm definitely glad I didn't have to deal with that as an athlete. We used to always joke, as a pitcher, you would read the newspaper and you would read if you won or lost the game, and it's a team sport, and sometimes that would be frustrating. Like, it's not all about me; it's about my team. And so now, for some of these athletes to have to deal with that's tough. That's probably very important with their mental health, is just being able to be strong and to navigate that part of their game. Yeah,
absolutely. Speaking of mental health, it's interesting. There is a huge push nationwide for mental health. Go get help. Most universities have that available. High school guidance counselor, maybe, but there's a huge push for it, and I see it promulgated everywhere. The problem is they're not taking advantage of it because of the stigma that goes along with it. And I was able to talk to a coach recently who was a lead by example, and he totally understood the mental part of it. And the example that I used was, you go out and spend $500,000 for a Lamborghini, and you open the hood and it's got a 4-cylinder motor. Something's wrong, right? So the coaches, assistant coaches, they have to be aware of that. But what this coach did was, he started going once a week and started having some therapy sessions at the university. And when he came back, and he would find an athlete that he could tell there was something wrong. Not exactly pinpointing it, but he could tell. And he would just tell him, he said, listen, I have issues too, right? We all do. We're human. There's always room for improvement. And I went to go see, whoever it may be. So how does that play in when you're, even in academics, you can see kids that are having issues. How do you go about that?
Definitely trying to, remind them to use their voices and to talk. I had a great situation with my daughter when she was a young athlete. She was struggling, and sometimes our relationship together was struggling, and we went to a therapist. This therapist was an athlete, and she had a young daughter that was a tennis star, and so we learned, a lot of great strategies to use. And it was funny because you talk about the stigma. My daughter was like, I'm not going to therapy, Mom. I don't want to go lay down on a couch and meditate. And I'm like, no, honey, that's not what therapy is. So she didn't even understand. She didn't want to go. And then after we went and she saw, we would rotate. She would go 1 week, I would go 1 week, we would go together. She learned that it's just a safe space to be able to talk. And I think that's what we try to get our kids with our especially our middle school kids, is you have a safe space where nobody's going to tell anybody what you're saying, and you can just go and vent, or you can go and talk. And they really are stepping up. You know, we do a lot of social emotional lessons now with our students. And again, we in my school, we have in my district, we have wellness centers in every single school. So we're really just trying to push that to them, where you have a safe space, go and talk. And a lot of them do. You know, we have anonymous tip lines for things that they want to talk about or they just want to vent. And I think it's working. We're seeing a lot more kids actually utilize those resources. So we just continue to talk about them and share experiences and try to get them to go in.
That's awesome. Yeah, just leading by example, and finding someone that may have an issue. It's all about trust, I think, right? And developing that trust is key.
Right. They say, I know I read an article where it doesn't matter what the class is. If the teacher is amazing, the kids will love the class. Yeah. So just really trying to, again, get to know the kids, make it fun for them, have boundaries, have things that are in place that, just that they can relate to and that, they enjoy. And I think when you do that, you can get them to open up more and to communicate.
Absolutely. Yep, absolutely. Amie, how do you incorporate this? So we're talking about like mental skills training, maybe some sports psychology as well. How do you incorporate that to both into your coaching approach and academics? I think they've got to be very equal.
Yeah, I just think we try, again, to just have discussions. We have them talk with peers. We try to use different things that they can relate to, things that they can make connections with themselves. We try to tap into, their prior knowledge, their prior experiences, which, again, can be difficult because every kid has a different experience.
Sure.
I was talking to a kid about our vacation, what are you going to do? And some of these kids, they've never been out of the state of California. They've never done things. So, and then there's others that have lots of different experiences. So I think just really trying to give them something that they can connect to within our lessons and trying to listen and giving them more time to talk than me talking, having them do more of that, discussion rather than me telling them, just listening to them and allowing them to come to their own conclusions.
Yeah, that's great. I think that's the whole thing. The biggest, how do I say this? The greatest aspect of communication is listening, right? And most people are listening to reply, not understand, right? And these are some of the mental strengths that coaches, administrators, teachers, these are areas of improvement for themselves and for the student athlete, whether it's just the student, right? They're having an issue, right? Understanding what these mental strengths are and mental training, if we want to call it that. Some of these exercises and drills that teachers are exposed to, I think a lot of them try, but what I found is that it's kind of short-lived. Right? They try this, doesn't work. Johnny's not responding. Sally's nodding her head. Those kind of things. And it can be very rewarding. It can also be very frustrating for an administrator, teacher, coach. That they need help. You're there to help them, and they're not really responding well with it. So we're getting ready to take a quick commercial break here, guys. We are talking with the amazing Amie Stewart, and just a great feedback from her. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
You're listening to The Mind Coordinator with Dr. David Schoonover on KSHP, AM 1400, 107.1 FM, and VSX Digital Sports Network.
Embark on this thrilling journey into sports leadership with me, Dr. David Schoonover, every Sunday morning from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. on KSHP, exclusively on the VSX Digital Sports Network. Gain valuable insight into the minds of coaches, executives, and administrators as we uncover the secrets of coaching brilliance. Tune in for exclusive revelations and endless inspiration. Be sure to catch every moment each Sunday, 9 a.m. to 10 a.m., right here live on KSHP 107.1 FM and 1400 AM.
According to a VA study, each day 22 veterans take their own lives. Together we can win the war against veteran suicide. Join Mission 22 to let our veterans know that they have an army behind them that cares. This salute is courtesy of Pops Automotive, where they're serving our area with integrity and excellence. For all of your automotive needs, stop by 1433 South Main Street in Las Vegas or call them at 702-676-1002. That's 702-676-1002. That's Pops Automotive on the air saluting our troops and veterans.
You're tuned into the VSX Digital Sports Network.
You're listening to The Mind Coordinator with Dr. David Schoonover on KSHP, AM 1400, 107.1 FM, and VSX Digital Sports Network.
All right, we are back with the amazing Amie Stewart, and just having some great conversation, the insights from Amie in her illustrious career and as an administrator, as a leader, as a board member. So we just want to thank you again, Amie. Just really great conversations. I want to kind of jump into something that is not heard of much, and a lot of administrators and leaders do not exercise, and that's emotional intelligence. Leaders who understand this, it helps them empathize with others. It helps build strong relationships. And it's based on trust, and it's based on mutual respect. So how does emotional intelligence play into either sports or academics for you?
I think it's very important. I know we were just talking about, what we can do as coaches or as teachers. And I just think that being leaders, you want to have good structure, but you need to be human beings. You need to be able to admit mistakes or be vulnerable with your students and your student athletes. And, I try to laugh at myself. I try to not be perfect. And I think when, students and players see that, then they feel like they can be the same and they don't have to be perfect and they can make mistakes. I think that's very important as well.
It is, for sure. And when you can, I think you said something very profound. If you can laugh at yourself in front of the team or in front of the class, it just lets them know you're human, right?
Right. And I think it takes a little bit of pressure off of them to be perfect. Sometimes students or athletes, they don't want to answer, they don't want to raise their hand, or they don't want to make mistakes. And I think just reminding them, like, if I ask them a question, my athletes, and, let's say they did something on the field that I questioned, or people were like, why did you do that? Instead of, getting on them about why they did that, why did you do that? Explain to me. And you find that 9 out of 10 times they have a thought process. They have a reason why they did it. And then you can guide them to, okay, maybe you should try this next time, or maybe, you could have done this instead. After all of my team meetings, I would meet with my kids, and we always start with, okay, what are the negatives? What could we have done better as a team? What are the positives? What did we do well? And try to bridge on that and bring them to a place where they're thinking, and you're not telling them how to play or telling them, I've seen coaches take 2 steps this way, take 2 steps. Why? Teaching them the why and allowing them to ask those questions and, again, come to those conclusions on their own. I think that's just really important to make athletes better.
I think you're absolutely right. I've had multiple conversations with high school, college, and pro athletes, and I asked the simple question. The high school, the college and the pro players, they're about the same size. They have great skills, but what is the difference, right? And that difference is that it's more of an individual sport when it's in the pro realm. the pressure is still the same, but they're inspired by the coach.
Right.
Right? And the coach has so much to do with taking these individuals and trying to make a cohesive group out of it.
Right.
I think it's the
And you have
emotional
so many
intelligence.
different, you have so many different types of players, different backgrounds, different cultures, just there's so many different things that you have to think about and then try to build that, together. But again, just getting to know the individuals and how you fit and work together and focusing on common goals. I always tell my athletes, the great thing about being around other athletes is you have the same successes, you have the same strategies, you want to accomplish the same things, and really just trying to get your team to believe in those goals, and they can be little goals to big goals, and just really trying to focus on guiding each one of them to that.
Sure. You've got the athlete, then you've got the, what do we call? We'll call it the intelligence of the game, understanding what's going on during the game. If you got a guy on first and the ball's hit to the shortstop, what's the second baseman doing? Right? You've got to have that intelligence of the game that certainly makes weighing out those risks a little easier.
Absolutely. I have a lot of friends that coach, Division I, and I asked them, me as a travel ball coach, what can I do to prepare my athletes? And they always say the same thing, teach them the game. These kids are told what to do, and they're not taught to think about it. And I was very blessed. I had an amazing travel ball coach when I was younger, and he just was the most strategic person ever. He just taught us about every situation, strategy, thinking. Even the kids nowadays, they just don't think, they don't problem solve as much. How are we going to do this? And really teaching them that strategic part of the game, I think, is so important.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially when you have all the knowledge that you need in your back pocket these days, right?
Right. And I think for me, that comes to, I don't think I was the best athlete. I mean, I'm a good athlete, but I didn't throw, you see kids now throwing, these women are throwing 70 miles an hour. I threw 60 miles an hour. So I had to figure out how to be better. And for me, that was my movement. That was my targets. That was my practicing. My dad would have me out there throwing 250 pitches a day. I think because I wasn't as talented as everyone else, I became talented because I really used my mind, and I always tried to outsmart people and try to think about that in that, line of thinking.
Sounds like he created quite a work ethic for you.
Yes, absolutely. That was very important to my family, is working hard. And when you work hard, great things happen. So I always try to instill that in my athletes as well.
Absolutely. And there are so many hidden stories, so to speak, of professional athletes that you don't really hear. And one that comes to mind is Tiger Woods, arguably one of the best golfers ever, right? He's at least in the top 10. When he was 18, I was 18 and won his first green jacket, but he beat everybody by 13 or 14 strokes. He just wiped everybody out. He got his green jacket, went and changed, and when it was all said and done, he went back to the driving range and hit 500 balls after the tournament. So this work ethic is so important for a lot of these kids. It just depends on a lot of things: climate, culture, coaching, inspiration, motivation. Those things, they all add up. And if the kids understand that you got to have some fun too, right? Let's be competitive. Let's go out there and do our best. But the motivational part of it is really what I'm getting at. And it's really hard for administrators, academics, sports, inspirational leaders, right? They inspire and they motivate and they set positive examples. They recognize these achievements that these kids are doing. Even if they don't win the game, if your shortstop, if she throws out a guy that was a close call, you recognize those achievements. They don't need to be, grandiose, right? And this really encourages personal and professional growth. So, Amie, how has that changed? Kind of a multiple question here. How do you inspire and motivate these athletes?
I think for me, a big part of that was my practice design. I always put things in there that were competitive, and my kids would tell me they don't even want to play against me. You're the most competitive person. They would get frustrated with me. So it was fun, though. Even when my daughter and my family, when we're playing darts, we're yelling at each other and we're talking a little trash. So I think just really my practices, I would design the beginning of my practices really on the skills, the hard part, the conditioning, but then I would go into games and competitive things where they could have fun and laugh at themselves and, they can compete. And I think we would even sometimes at softball practice, we would get a kickball out there and we would play kickball because it was something different, but we're competing. And I think just really making it fun so that they want to be there. I think one thing I see with some of our athletes, and it's really hard because people have different support systems, is being at practice. I have athletes that would be so much better if they showed up to practice every day. Yeah. So I think just making it fun and just trying to do competitive things where they can win or lose, I think that's probably the best part of motivating them is they want to be there because they know it's going to be a fun time.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, if you're having fun playing the sport, you're going to show up to the practices. You're going to do what the coach says. You're going to mess around with the guys on the bench too, right? It's one of those things.
Right.
Absolutely.
And you hear of a lot of athletes that don't like practice. I'll be honest, I wasn't the most practice player, but you have to practice. So how do you transform that into, getting them to focus and be there? And I think that's just trying to mix in things that are fun. So it's not just, super hard all the time, but you can actually have some fun and do different things. I think that's important.
I think so too. I think if you instill that into them, like you're saying, middle school, I think that's really a good foundation for them. They take that into high school and college. One of the things that I have found very difficult for a lot of coaches, so much so that most don't talk about it, is at the college level, the chances or the amount of athletes that will actually play pro is minuscule. It's
right.
Tens and thousands of athletes, and just a handful are going to play pro. It's
right.
Not for any particular reason. It's kind of whatever that team is looking for, right? So most coaches don't prepare college athletes for life after college, right? Some will put a lot of emphasis on education, which I think they should, to be able to use that education to go out into the working world and have a good life. How do you go about doing that, Amie? How do you prepare, or what kind of conversations do you have with these athletes, knowing that only a handful are going to make it?
Right. I think it's a little bit different with the women because there's not a lot of different pro leagues or different outlets for that. So we definitely focus on education, but really just about life experiences. I remind them that when they're looking for jobs later on, nobody cares that I was a softball player. They don't even know I was in the Hall of Fame. They don't know any of these accolades. Right. But what they do know is by being an athlete is I can be a team player. I can work with a lot of different people. I can, be goal-oriented. I can focus on those. So I try to instill in them the characteristics that will take them through life, being a kind person, being hardworking. We talk about work ethic. Yeah. Not worrying about if you're going to an NAI school, a Division 1, 2, 3, if you're going to the pros, what do you want out of this? Do you, what education? It doesn't matter. So I just try to remind them of the characteristics that are going to be important and those life skills and those teachable moments that will help them, throughout the rest of their lives.
Yeah, that's wonderful. My daughter went to Santa Barbara City College, and they actually had a course there called surfing.
Right.
So, if you're surfing or basket weaving, it kind of throws curveballs because what they're really looking at is no education and all athletics, right? So I love what you're saying there. You've got to prepare them. You've got to let them know. You got to be honest with them, right? It's
right, and I think that's one thing in education I'm seeing is not everybody wants to go to college either. So these CTE courses and our Cal Apps pathways, there's amazing things you can do in school now that wasn't there. They have culinary, they have we just introduced aviation, and there's a flight simulator at our high school, and giving them different things to find that they love and to be able to go, whether it's college, whether it's careers, whatever, just preparing them for our global world and how they can, have happiness and find good things in it.
Absolutely, yeah. It's a continuous learning process. It really is, because the evolution of everything, right?
Right.
Equipment, techniques, training, nutrition, so much involved in that, right? Just really quickly, Amy, great leaders, we talked about this continuous learning, and they prioritize that. They invest into their own growth, right, as well as the development of the teams. Most coaches, they really don't spend a lot of time investing into their own growth. Growth to them might be eating better, right? But it's not really helping them. It's not really helping anybody. So a great leader, right? They are concerned about their own growth. They're concerned about the development of their team, and that's such an important aspect of it. Listen, guys, we are going to have to wrap up here. I would love to talk to Amy for about 100 more hours. There's so many questions,
Right.
and getting her feedback. Let's give a warm welcome, a round of applause for Amie Stewart. If Amy, if you see her at school, go up and give this lady a big hug. You don't realize what an important factor she will be in your life. And we just want to thank her again for being there. Listen, guys, I just want to let you know, we're going to conclude this session today. Remember, mental wellness, it's not a destination. It's a continuous journey of self-discovery and growth. Practicing mindfulness, building emotional intelligence, and seeking support. When needed, we empower ourselves to lead fulfilling lives on the field. If you need help, it's there. Go get it. Don't wait. Thanks for joining us on the Mind Corner today, guys. Let's catch you next week. Thanks very much.
You're listening to the Mind Coordinator with Dr. David Schoonover on KSHP, AM 1400, 107.1 FM, and VSX Digital Sports Network.